Hello everyone, we're happy to be with you again in lesson number 8, and this time it's going to be a shaking lesson. We promised it to you and now we're going to keep it. This is a lesson on the topic of the perception of reality. Today we're going to speak about things that are not clear, not obvious. They may seem odd to you. They may necessarily raise more than one eyebrow in you, but before anything else we would like to say hello to a special woman that has joined us today for the lesson and entered Tal's shoes, Masha. Hello, Masha.
So to know Masha a little bit, tell us about yourself instead of we introducing you.
That was not expected.
No, Masha likes doing such unexpected things.
Okay. So I've been studying for 10 years now, and I've been in Israel for 10 years exactly. I also lived in Germany and in France, so certainly many of the students on the other side of the screen, I probably know them, and maybe there are some who know me as well.
And you also know French?
I tried very much, but it's hard to kind of get rid of it, but I guess I still have a little bit of this.
Okay, so you can at least read the questions in German, Russian, English, right?
Yeah, so please, for questions my way, I'll be happy to do it.
And to pronounce the questions correctly, right?
Pronounce the names, yes, correctly. Yes.
So we begin every lesson of ours, including this fascinating lesson, with a clip of a Rav, of our teacher, Rav Leitman.
Hello,
and from there, we will start our lesson with the correct thoughts.
What is the difference between the corporeal senses that we're familiar with and the spiritual senses that we should be using in order to develop the quality of bestow?
Also, your corporal senses are not corporeal ones. Rather now, this is how you depict yourself in your current state. Everything is inside the will to receive. Think this way, that everything that is in us are discernments within our will to receive, and other than that, there's nothing. And all the differences are in how you determine how you feel, how you divide, decide all those discernments and arrange them in you. You can reach through such scrutinies, through such perception, that you feel that you are in the world of Ein Sof, and everything is eternal, everything is whole. And what did we have before? Before I decided those things, I clarify them in the wrong way. Therefore, I felt that lower world that we call this world. I felt myself that I am in a body. I felt myself, it's a joke. I felt myself that I am alive and then I'm dead, and such other states. Is it really so? Yeah. Once upon a time, this is how I describe things. We were all as dreamers.
We were as dreamers. This is one of my favorite sentences, personally, of the Kabbalists that describe the awakening of a person to the spiritual world, this opening of his eyes, and that we actually experience the whole reality of our lives as a kind of a dream into which we are born. It is very tangible, very painful and pleasing, and through the wisdom of Kabbalah we receive the vessels to truly wake up. Wake up as you awaken from a dream. There are people who awaken abruptly, others awaken gradually, slowly, but in any case, the salvation of the Lord is in the blink of the eyes, and the revelation in the end is sudden. But this process of awakening is like the process of awakening from a dream. What do we awaken to? To the true reality. What is the true reality? Before we answer that, let's ask, what is reality in general? Is there such a thing called reality? What do you say?
And why does a reality look the way it does? And,
why?
Why does everything happen to us? Is there something that is managing all of that? Is it all coincidental? Where do I perceive it? Is it outside of me? And where do I get all the thoughts from, the desires from? All of a sudden I see things. What is the source of all that? And the question is, are there life after death? After our body deteriorates in the grave? And some movies saw this soul flying to heaven, looking at everyone, waving to them.
And in all of this, there's also this issue of what we call maybe other worlds, aliens, other dimensions, things that actually I can imagine as existing, or maybe they don't exist.
Yeah, and mainly after everything we spoke of, we want to know what is the connection, our connection to the reality, who governs it, how to understand it, how to control it. This is what we want to know. And this is how all scientists, this is what they wanted to discover. Also, science advances according to the development of the desires. It started, you like science, right? It started with Newton. Yeah, science, what it tries to study and dissect is the riddle of life, or the secret of reality. It's the same thing. And actually, Newton, he determined that the fact that we live in reality, this is the reality. And if I don't exist, there is no reality. Without me, there is no reality. Meaning, if I'm in the reality exists, and this is how we perceive it. Only later on came Einstein, who proved that the reality is relative. Meaning it's not that there is a reality that exists of a certain world, whether I live or die, that world exists. No. The reality, excuse me, I'm talking too fast. No, it's because of the translators. Hello, David. That's me. It is our beloved friend who translates us to English.
And 21 other friends who are translating us to other languages.
And especially David, because if I talk too fast, then at the end of the lesson, he comes with a hammer
and love.
So we spoke about Newton, who decided that reality is absolute, and Einstein said that reality is relative. If we will move through reality in different speed, we will experience it differently. And then comes the quantum physics, and they said that reality, not only it is relevant, if I look at something, I change reality. Therefore, all the results of all the studies inside those most gentle resolutions of the matter, we cannot know what's going on there, because it is enough that the researcher switches with all the parameters. If the same, still the result is different. Only the researchers, the observers, the one who observes is different. So the reality is between the object that I study to the one who is looking at it. Comes the wisdom of Kabbalah and says, these games that you're playing is nice, dear scientists, but outside there is no reality at all.
One moment. So here I have to ask a question by Rita from Germany. If it is a dream, why in this dream there is suffering and death? If it's a dream, it should have been a nice dream. And also, if it's not a nice dream, we're not supposed to really feel pain. But that sensation is very sharp. So in this illusion that you call this reality, we can really feel pain, we can feel sorrow. And there's another question here, that if indeed this is just a dream, then why do we feel the suffering of others as well?
These are two different things. On the level of dreams, so Rita, surely I assume that every one of us had dreams, very exciting dreams, that we experience emotions of fear and great pleasure. When we are in a dream, even inside a dream, we can think that we experience a very tangible emotion, even though we are in this dream of a few seconds and everything is taking place in our mind. But we're not talking about it. The thing is how we perceive reality, and what is the system of senses that allows us to feel and experience our life in such a tangible way, as pain, as pleasure, in a way that this is the furthest away thing from illusion. We simply live. We cannot say that this is an illusion. It is solid. Is it inanimate? What does it mean that it is an illusion? I had a car accident. I have to go to hospital. I have bone broken. So what are you talking about?
this whole story. So it's just a simple word. We're going to come and talk about the whole mechanism of our perception of reality. But right now, the reality that we perceive, that's what we perceive. It's real. Kabbalists, when they already rise into a different reality, they feel something that for the time being is outside of the box. They feel that this reality which they had experienced inside of the box, let's call it this way, is for them as a dream. But for us, well, we're still here. Pinch me. Hi. You see, it's not a dream. So let us start entering the thick of things, and let's have a short passage, and we'll continue.
אז מהי המציאות? אנחנו מדברים על זה וגם המדע...
So what is reality? We're talking about it, and science is also in this, that we are actually, we describe ourselves as a box that perceives. We're a box that perceives, that has 5 senses. All right? Let's draw this box. And we have 5 openings. And we are familiar with these senses, right? Smell, hearing, seeing, touching, and tasting. And through these senses, we perceive a certain reality. And every sense interprets reality that is as if it's outside of our perception. Let's write down here that this is us, the ego or I, and through this box we feel reality. Let's, for example, take the sense of sight, and let's see how relative this whole thing is. So from the outside comes to me a certain piece of information. It is received in me. Let me make that drawing. Well, maybe not the most beautiful, but for the sake of things, this is my eye, okay? I have a pupil. We're familiar with this. There's a pupil that focuses the light, etc. But the whole story begins with the fact that this is absorbed in me on my CMOS, right? The back of the eye. People who are familiar with photography, this is kind of a personal joke. But essentially, this is a retina. And in our retina, we have several things happening. First of all, there is an inversion of the picture, meaning that, in fact, what was, let's say, a tree, is perceived in us upside down, right? And here we see a picture of an upside-down tree. That's, the first thing. So the cypress is upside down. The other thing is, in fact, we don't see a picture that has depth. In the retina, all we see is a collection of stains, green above, brown below, and things like that. And then our brain starts doing some processing, comparing the 2 eyes, shutting one eye, shut another eye. You notice how it's different angles now. And a 3-dimensional angle is composed out of the different angles of our 2 eyes. And all the information that is produced later moves into a part of the brain through the ganglion, all kinds of nerves that add size and color, and there are millions of processes involved until in the end, and by the way, it also moves through my emotional part. I compare it to something that I saw once and the experiences that I had, maybe next to a tree, a cypress tree, maybe a friend hugged me next to that cypress tree, or I don't know what happened. You know me, I'm sentimental. Actually, no, we were throwing these fruits next to one another. Acorns, we were throwing at one another. So following all of this story in me, what is perceived in me inside of the box, and I emphasize it's inside of the box, inside of this thing, what I as if see. Well, we don't have brown, so let's do something like that. See how talented I am, how gifted I am.
Is it a carrot?
No, that's not carrot. This is a cypress tree. Oh,
it looks like a candle.
It looks like a candle, yeah. So now, if I were to ask you, but what is this information which is outside? What is that? Is there really a cypress tree outside of my perception? And nowadays, psychologists that engage with perception, people who engage in perception from all kinds of different angles, doctors, scientists, started doubting that indeed there is anything outside of me. I don't know what there is outside of me. I can only talk about what is received inside of my perception, and I perceive it. Why is all of this important? Because then what is happening is that everything depends on the way in which I interpret all the influence of the light over me. I don't know what is on the outside. I just know that there is something there that influences me. And then they are asking about suffering, joy. Do I perceive a mitna, or my mother-in-law, or a police officer, or I don't know what? There is a certain influence over me. And imagine to yourselves that all that I feel in my life depends on the internal processes that I perform in order to interpret this reality, or as we learned before, on some kli, some vessel that I have. And anyone who studied a little bit of psychology or in general, you can just go and search in Google and find thousands of different ways to deceive our perception visually or audially, and see how much our world is really, I would say, crazy. We perceive the world through all kinds of perceptual mistakes. As an example, the moon once looks big and then it looks small. This is just some sort of a deviation of our perception. There's an Ames room. There are many examples of that. So why am I telling you these things? And maybe there's another example. There's a very interesting experiment. You have these glasses in which there's a mirror that turns the picture upside down. Just like in a camera, it turns the picture upside down. So they let students walk around with these glasses for a week. And the whole world is upside down. What happened after a week, do you know?
They got used to it.
They got used to it. What does it mean?
That I started inverting this picture, this image.
Yeah, the eye stopped inverting the picture and I saw the world as it should be, normally.
But you know, I've been hearing it for 10 years, and every time I hear it again and again, and I'm asking myself, so why do billions of people see the same thing then?
Oh, this is an excellent question, and I remember that people always ask this question, new students like myself, and they ask him. And he says, but who is the one who perceives all of these people who are asking that same question or are seeing the same thing? Who is the one who is observing and saying, everybody likes to eat carrot? Who says that?
I don't understand.
It seems to you, in your perception, that all the people, you're telling me, but everyone is seeing the same thing.
Yeah.
Who perceives that everybody is seeing the same thing? Who is the one who is saying it? Who is the one who is perceiving it? Who is experiencing it?
Me.
That's it. But really, outside of you, does it happen? We're not saying no, we're just saying we can't tell. We don't know.
I want to get into this very interesting discussion and to say, yeah, seemingly it is true that we all see the same thing and we feel the same thing, meaning we are all probably belong to a special species in nature that sense reality this way.
Just like a cat sees everything on this green of network, and
a cat sees in a certain way, bee sees things in a different way, and a snake sees things thermically, according to...
And a dog interprets reality according to smells.
Soon we'll watch a clip about it. What I'm trying to say is that basically we're absolutely, and we have to understand it, we're in the beginning of the road, because science also understands it. We perceive reality in a very, very subjective way. And the fact that there is a common thing between us, we will come to it as we go in this lesson. This is what connects us. But the subjectively of our perception exists, and we all feel it. For instance, Moshe gave an example about vision. Let's give an example about hearsay. What do I hear? I hear some vibrations inside the air, some waves, frequencies entering my ear, hit the eardrum, and then they start moving the whole spiral inside with their all small cells between 20 to 20,000 hertz. I can hear something that comes from this vibration of air, just move and a moving air. Now I'm sitting with Moshe or with my wife or with anybody in an opera house. Now Moshe, he really likes opera and I don't. Now we're singing an opera, and the air is moving. There are vibrations in the air. They're playing and singing. Moshe is crying. He's crying. He's so excited. And me?
I'm crying out of boredom.
I'm snoring. I'm asleep because it bores me so much, but it's the same vibration in the air.
I might be crying as a result of your snoring.
Could be. So I'm very tired of looking at you. I've heard all day this hard work I'm doing with my eyes and also with hearing. So it seems that every moment in life, everything is working so hard. I have these frequencies in my ears, and I turn my eyesight.
Well, this whole process happens automatically, and actually even that doesn't exist. We're going to talk about it in a minute. But what is important, and let's focus on that, because all of these explanations, science is familiar with that. So there's some essence. We're not related to this essence. We don't know what it is, but we start feeling it, perceiving it when there is some contact between what we think of as our senses. Then we start perceiving something, and that depends on our perception, as Amit said. And in fact, the wisdom of Kabbalah says that the senses are not really senses that are comprised of nerves and my nose and my eye. The senses is essentially are just a degree of impression that we have in our desire from the light. This essence that is constantly affecting us is the light. This is what Kabbalists called it. And all in all, the difference between the senses is different degrees of my impressions, my inspirations from the same reality. Let's see maybe what Baal HaSulam writes about it in the introduction to the book of Zohar, the preface to the book of Zohar.
It's an article that speaks a lot about the perception of reality. It prepares us to the reading in the Zohar, which obligates a different perception of reality.
And if you talked about it, Baal HaSulam wrote 4 introductions to the book of Zohar. Each one of them has a special role in its own, and it prepares us to the right approach, the ultimate approach, the right approach that the book of Zohar talks about, so that we do not err. And so Baal HaSulam, and we're trying to learn from him to some extent, is trying to give us the right foundations for the spiritual perception of reality. So let's read what he tells us. In our corporeal perception, which is before our eyes, there are also real things, even though we have no perception and no image of their existence. Just like the electricity or magnets, which are called fluids. Nevertheless, who can say that these names are not real when we vividly and satisfactorily know their actions? And we could not be more indifferent to the fact that we have no perception of the essence of the subject itself, namely electricity itself. This name is as tangible and as close to us as though it were entirely perceived by our senses. Even little children are familiar with the word electricity, as well as they are familiar with words such as bread, sugar, and so on. So what is Baal HaSulam telling us?
He says a simple thing. Actually, to continue what we spoke about in the essence of the wisdom of Kabbalah, that the names that Kabbalists write about are seemingly abstract theoretical names. No, they're very tangible, even if we have no idea about them at all. What does it mean? Also, the electricity. We all know what electricity is. Every child knows what electricity is. And from the age of 3, we know how to be cautious of electricity in the world, not to be harmed by it. But actually, nobody knows what electricity is. What is this energy? Even an engineer that can write down the formula and to live inside the voltage and pairs and such things, he doesn't know what electricity is itself. This energy of electricity, what is it? We know electricity is good. Is it bad? Useful? Harmful? Is it both? But what is electricity? We learn what electricity is according to its actions, according to the way we see it activate something else. But electricity itself, not only we do not know what it is, we don't even care about it. We have no luck to know what electricity is in and of itself.
And even a deficiency for this, well, all in all, we have a contact with this thing called electricity. Maybe we can show a sketch that I made, a beautiful drawing. So here we have a socket and we have a plug. How do I know that there is electricity here? Because I connect them. And what is the action of the electricity? I don't know. It depends on what I have here. It could be all kinds of things. Meaning, what do I mean by that? We have no contact right now to the essence in itself, to something that is outside of me. I don't know what it is. And I can't really say, if you really look at the guidance that Kabbalists give us, I can't tell what is outside of me. However, I have some connection with that essence according to the phenomena. When it hits my senses, when there is contact, it creates phenomena. For example, water. Have you seen waters in all kinds of their different states? You have that in Europe, I guess, right? So if you chill water, they become hard, yes? Ice. Yeah, I can feel it, I can taste it, I can bite it, maybe smell it, I don't know, but I see it. Later on, if I warm it up a little bit, they become transparent, right? Or I can drink it. If I keep heating it above 100 degrees, they vaporize, and then I don't see them, I don't feel them, I don't smell them, I can't feel them. The water disappeared? They didn't disappear. Between the three states of accumulation, there is an essence that only changes its form, but actually the essence itself hasn't changed. However, I no longer feel it because it has a different state of accumulation. So, as Bala Sulam writes, I don't know what is the essence of bread. I don't know what is the essence of you or the essence of me, myself. But when I look, I see a meat, I see something, I hear something, I smell something. It's a good smell, he actually took a shower, etc. So, all in all, this is our connection to reality.
Okay, we have a critical mass of the same question, so I have to ask it. Tamar from Barcelona, and also Edson from Brazil, and many more students are asking, so what is it? Is it a dream or an illusion? That's to start with. And besides, everything I've been taught throughout my life, everything I saw throughout my life, my reflection in the mirror, everything my parents told me, is it all a lie, an illusion, a dream, or a virtual reality? What is it?
In truth, Kabbalists also call our world the imaginary world, the world of phenomena. But look, we just started getting confused. We didn't still enter the thick of things. We are very much asking you to go step by step. It's good that you're asking questions, bombard us with questions. But it's very important to understand that what we are studying here is about the spiritual reality. And as we talked about it, and this is why this lesson is relatively placed towards the end of the semester, we explained it several times already. Kabbalists relate to the path for attaining spirituality and reality itself, and in general, the whole way they look at the world is leaning on a very important principle, an iron rule called the judge has only what his eyes can see. This means that as long as I do not attain the spiritual reality, I'm not in a reality from which I can say, this reality in which I live right now is a dream, all of this is an illusion, then I can't just say it. We learn it right now, and we learn the way to get there, but it's important to realize that right now, this is my reality. This is reality, this is my life, all of this is true, and out of this thing I now receive tools with which to explore it, to research it.
You think that is confusing? So let's delve even deeper. No, I'm serious. The purpose is not to get confused. Our purpose is to start getting a new perception of reality. And know that whenever a perception switches in a person in a new degree, it creates a feeling of confusion. Rav Leitman tells us before every new spiritual degree, you're losing what you had before, and oops, all of a sudden you start acquiring a new perception, a new feeling, a new understanding. So it's fine. So our ego is a bit shaky a little bit, but let's talk in practice. How does Kabbalah explains about our perception, our mechanism of perception? So as we always say, and Kabbalists say, we're inside a field of light. This is our whole reality, as the Ari writes. The light of Ein Sof fills up the entire reality, and on top of this light, we have our desire. Okay, we heard about it, the desire. It's a matter, and what is special about this desire? It's a matter which is sensitive to the light. It's like celluloid. You know, what you take pictures with, it is sensitive to the light. And the forces which operate in us within the desire are these reshimot we always speak about, which are inside the desire. You remember reshimot, recollections, along with the influence of the light on the desire. The light influences the desire, surrounds it from all over, from within and without. It creates everything. The light and the reshimot create in us, in the desire, or the common desire that we all share, a certain picture of a certain reality, a picture of the world, of my life, of the passing history. This is the picture we live in. That picture also creates in us every once in a while a sensation of myself. Yesterday I woke up, it was me, and today same thing, and even now it is me. But in fact, that is not the case. In fact, every reshimo, let's draw it bigger here, is comprised from small frames, from a sequence of situations that we all have to go through. And in fact, every time I discover myself under the influence of the light in a certain point, let's say here, in a new state. Only it seems to me that this is me, but not me watching a new state which is revealed to me, and I need to act there, to treat it in a certain way, and then I feel it with my ego, the whole reality. And the reality, in my experience, creates different situations, pleasant or not as pleasant, anxiety, concern, but everything is felt in this mechanism of mine, which is called for now the will to receive, with the intention to receive. And what are you drawing here for us?
No, I just want to make things more ordered for the students. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? You remember the 5 senses? Let's say that this is our brain. And all of this whole thing, science discovered that through these 5 senses, we actually receive all of our signals in taste, feeling, sight, hearing, smell, and we interpret it here through the brain. And what we are telling you now is what Kabbalists discovered, which is the system that activates, that stands behind all of this story, behind our physical body, and that we discover also is actually imaginary. And this is actually called the will to receive, this desire that we have here. So we're actually talking about this state where the reshimot, those records that came to us necessarily from above downwards, through our cascading from that place, each and every one from his place in the general soul, through this shattering in which we mixed with one another, we are actually being operated by the same spiritual gene, that spiritual coil of genes, which we call reshimot, records or recollections. And this coil is expressed mandatorily each time in our lives. Tak, another reshimo, tak, another state and another situation, another moment, another encounter, pain or pleasure, etc., etc. And according to these reshimot, we are programmed, our entire will to receive, according to the reshimot that I now live in. In that way, I perceive reality. For example, right now I'm in a reshimo for the sake of that topic we're talking about, where my wife is pregnant. Let's say she's not, but let's suppose. So what happens? I simply remember it very vividly. Suddenly, in one moment, I walk in the city in Tel Aviv where I lived, and there are so many women who are pregnant all around me. So many of them. That. I didn't see them before, and now they're all there. How can that be? And later it also happened with the children. Meaning, I remember walking with Odelia, my older daughter, in the carriage on the way to some park in Tel Aviv, and there are many other fathers walking around with babies in their baby carriages, and the street is full of shops for children, clothing and things like that. So these are things that, I wasn't programmed to see them before.
Meaning your reality changed, and what you see on the outside also changed.
We think that this is related to, let's say, I learned psychology, and I think of myself, let's say I'm a European or an observer, so it has to do with attention. There is a study of attention, but it's much more than that. So let's look at the diagram. Look, actually, what is our desire? We are actually, are you familiar with the old scale, weight? Inside of that weight, there is a coil, and according to its contraction or expansion, it gives us a certain measurement, a certain number, a certain reading. So what do we actually get from here? See, they put something here, up here. I don't know what it is. This something, let's call it a particular influence of the light, creates a certain pressure, a certain response in me, which is perceived through my senses. But what is that thing inside of me that is currently measuring it? My ego. What is the ego, which we refer to as this box or our entire perception? It's a very simple software. What do I get out of it? What will I gain out of it? Or maximum pleasure with minimum effort or minimum suffering. And then it's not just an ego, rather through the system, through this mechanism, I perceive my entire life. I perceive the whole of reality. According to what? What do I perceive out of this entire field of the light? Something very narrow and negligible. What do I get out of it? And then, if we go back to the sketch, then say there's something here, I just feel, well, it made me feel better, or it made me feel worse. No more than that. What is up here? What is this thing that is affecting me? I don't know, the creator, the upper worlds, all kinds of laws, light, I don't know. I have no contact with this at all. I don't even have an ability to feel it. Just like with the scale, the weight, there is no ability to know what it is. So we're limited. There's another example that Amit and I like a lot.
Yes.
With the teacher of Rav Leitman, Rabash, we heard a recording of his where in one lesson he had an amazing sense of humor, Rabash. So he says the following, as if a simple person, he says, I heard that there are people who actually enter the drawing, the lottery, and they actually win it.
Really?
Yeah.
And then he says, I heard that there are also people who are very much afraid of car accidents.
So about the drawing, the lottery, he says, you fool, you know how many people try to enter the lottery and they don't win it? But I must be unique. And then he says, but when it comes to car accidents, I heard that they're very, high accidents. But what would the same person, the same coil say?
It won't happen to me.
It's better if it happens to them. It's going to happen to them, not me. And why is it that way? The question comes up. Why, when it speak about the lottery, which is 1 to many millions, the probability is almost zero?
What Abash say? Why is it like this? Because everyone has a flute that leads him. He's dancing according to that flute that plays.
The flute of self-love. So this is how I interpret reality, and it's much deeper than that. If it's about winning the lottery, of course it's going to happen to me. If it's a car accident, God forbid, and which is nowadays it's crazy what's happening on the roads, that only happens to others.
There's an amazing study about it, which I read not long ago. They tested how we react. They put electrodes to our body, to our mind, about the information that we're about to receive, an electric shock. Meaning a person sits in a room, he knows that now he's holding something and he's about to receive an electric shock. At first they told him that he will get electric shock 100%, meaning he will definitely get one, and then 50%, 30%, 20%, until 1%. And the perception of his reality, the intensity of his emotion did not change. Meaning whether he knew that it will happen 100% or 0.5%, his emotion did not change. So we completely ignore the probability. We completely ignore it. because something tells us that what I imagine is about to happen. It's amazing.
But before the question, I just want to complete the story with Rabash and what you were talking about. I perceive and I manage my life only according to what I feel will give me pleasure. This is how I determine my entire life. The lottery gives me pleasure. I'm going to go and do it, and I think that that's what's going to happen. And what doesn't give me pleasure, I erase it. Car accidents, there's no such thing. This entire state, and right now we have a situation in Israel which is not simple, and many people totally ignore it. They don't want to know that it's happening. Why? Precisely because of that same mechanism which is called self-love. And a friend of ours once gave an example when I was learning this, Gilad Shadmon. He said, imagine that you have a little finger protector like grandma, and there's an ocean of light, and we come with this little cup, and we want to fill it up. But what can we get? We can only get the amount of that little cup. So we need to find another method to perceive, to feel reality. Otherwise, indeed, it's a life of sorrow. We don't really enjoy it. So if we were enjoying it, what reason would we have to enjoy the perception of reality? But if we don't enjoy it and we think there's more, let's learn how to change it.
So this is exactly what the students are asking. Kasia from Poland is asking, what exactly is man's role in changing the perception of reality and changing the whole of reality? How can we change what we perceive? How can we?
Well, there's no lesson where she's not asking correctly. She's several steps ahead of us. Well, we're going to get to that soon.
You know what? Let's watch a clip. Me and Amit, we watched that clip. I watched it. I don't know how many years you saw it. It's a clip with Rav Leitman where he explains about the perception of reality. It was edited. I saw it about 8 years ago, and it was nice, electrifying, nice. Now it was after the movie What the Bleep.
He had a meeting with the scientists that were in that
8 years,
movie.
Huh?
Yeah. And also in the archive, there's a movie about the meeting of Rav Leitman with all of these quantum scientists, where he teaches them Kabbalah, and they go through an amazing process.
It's amazing. I remember I saw it when I was in Italy. It was 10 years ago, and I watched that clip. But now, both of us, as a preparation for this lesson, we watched that clip again, and we were amazed. Why? Because in 5, I don't know how many minutes, he says it all.
Yeah, it pretty much explains the whole story.
So let's watch that clip, which is called Moving Through the Walls, and we'll see you in just 5 minutes.
Moving Through Walls. You remember the movie, right? You saw that movie, the Bleep. You were not here? We saw, what do you call that movie? What do we understand about this world, or something like that? The movie, The Bleep. What the bleep do we know? It was made by 8 international, well-known, renowned scientists, and they give a very nice example. They say an Indian person stands at the beach next to the ocean. He looks into the ocean. Ships come. Columbus's ships come. He doesn't see those ships. Why can't he see them? Because he doesn't have that model in his head of a ship, such a huge building that is floating on the face of the ocean. So he can't see it, because he doesn't have a kli that can discover this thing. First there has to be a kli, and then he can discover that form, that shape that can clothe in the kli. But after that, after he hears about it, and he builds inside of his head all kinds of depictions, models, patterns, then he starts seeing it. Gradually he starts seeing that boat, that ship, and then he sees it. When he sees it, he goes to the other Indians and he tells them, you guys, do you know about it? You can't see it, but I do see it. But start imagining that it's this way and that way. It's like a big building with many stories, many floors. It's like a mountain, and it's coming closer to us. Then they, out of their imagination, they build inside of their head the kelim, the vessels, and when they have these vessels, they can see the boat, the ship. In truth, they are mistaken, because the ship doesn't exist either. It only exists in their imagination, in the imagination of somebody who imagines it. This whole world doesn't exist. This whole world is an imagination. But that's the next stage. They haven't reached that yet. But what am I trying to say? How is this example correct? Why is it good? Because if you don't have the kelim, you don't recognize anything outside of you. And how do I build a kli, a vessel in me, if I don't know what is happening outside of me? Somebody has to tell me about it. There is no other possibility. Therefore, Kabbalists write books for you. And according to these books, you start imagining what is outside of you. And from those imaginations, those fantasies, you're gradually building molds, patterns, all kinds of forms and shapes inside of your head. And they are certainly incorrect, but gradually, by yearning, you are inviting light that builds forms in you that are more and more closer to the light itself. And then you begin to reach the point where you actually see. The light builds the kelim in you. And if not that, how do you know? Around us right now are worlds. You cannot imagine to yourself what is happening around you. Around you, it means that you don't perceive in your sensation. You think, if nowadays some caveman would come here and he would be landing in this world, just like it happens sometimes in the movies, you have such things. He would be walking around, he'd be amazed by everything that is happening. He couldn't see anything. He wouldn't be able to see anything. He would not recognize these things as existing. He would stumble into the wall of the building, or not. He can go through the wall. He doesn't have a sense for it. That's not for him. Yeah? For him, it's just matter, but not form dressed in matter. Very simple. If we only a little bit move further away from what we're used to into a true point that the Kabbalists are really telling us about, we will see the world that would seem to us as odd. Those people who come from quantum theory, why do they also reach a little bit of the same understanding? Because they are also entering a world where there are these peculiar laws. Suddenly one thing can be in two different places. Yeah, suddenly two different places, or time, different place and motion can accumulate in a different manner, and then they start seeing, they reach the same idea that everything is with respect to the receiver. And therefore, to go through the wall or not to go through the wall exists with respect to me, or it doesn't exist. And what does it mean with respect to me? According to my kelim, my vessels, whether they are developed or not.
The amazing thing here, this is a whole Kabbalah lesson where Love was asked many questions, unforgettable lesson. This is one of the most powerful lessons about the perception of reality. But we don't learn here about the perception of reality in order to be wiser. You remember what is the purpose of our study, right? We don't want to be smart to understand or to philosophize about things. We want to feel the reality that Kabbalists are talking about. And this is exactly what Rav Leitman is teaching us. How to understand that if we want to have contact with the spiritual world outside of us, we need the Kabbalists for that and what they wrote about. And there they start to describe through the language of the branches, models of the world, how it operates. And this whole thing, I'm not there yet. But by the study and with the importance that I get from my friends who tell me this is important, gradually, in my perception, out of a fog, new patterns and new emotions are formed in me. Therefore, the study with the right intention and the Facebook environment that we mention every lesson, this is what starts building in me this new perception. Every morning we have such a lesson. Every morning with a lesson with Rav Lightman, who changes and gives us every time, he and the scripts of Kabbalists, Rabash and Baal HaSulam, a more advanced perception of the spiritual reality. Another step and another step and another step. Many of our friends in Israel and the world are taken every day. I invite you to try it once. You're invited on Friday.
Well, anyway, just to put things in order a little bit about this clip, because there was a lot of information in it, and I'm sure that you are now even more confused. So what is going on? Actually, if we go back to the process of the development of science and the wisdom of Kabbalah, Baal HaSulam calls it the mother of all sciences, or the upper science. What does it explain to us? That there is no reality on the outside, everything is inside of us. Very simple. The whole of reality is inside of us. In a minute we'll explain also why we see it the way we do, according to the wisdom of Kabbalah. But what is there on the outside actually? A simple upper light. We don't know what this light is. We only know how to respond to this light. Only to respond to it. And out of our responses, out of the actions that we actually perform towards what seems to me to be outside of me, we actually study reality. From here, it turns out, and we explained it before about electricity and magnets and all of these things, from here, many questions emerge. That is, if the entire reality is inside of us, then actually our entire lives and all of our periods, all of our different lives, even physical locations and times, etc., everything is folded inside of me. What does that mean? And actually, it is even more bothersome, who is me? If I am also studying everything about myself through actions. And Baal HaSulam writes about it in the essence of the wisdom of Kabbalah, that is the second quotation. He says the following: if you want to contemplate a little bit more, if you want to get confused a little bit more even, then let me tell you the following. Just like there is no perception in the Creator at all, to that same extent, there is no attainment in the essence of self in every creature. And even the tangible things that we touch, in a way that all of our acquaintances with our friends and relatives in the world of action before us is nothing more than acquaintance with their actions. These are prompted and born by the association of their encounter with our senses, which render us complete satisfaction, although we have no perception whatsoever of the essence of the subject. Furthermore, you have no perception or attainment whatsoever even of your own essence, meaning whomever you are. Everything you know about your own essence is nothing more than a series of actions extending from your essence. That is, in a very simple way, myself, as Moshe said, there is Amit here before me, or there's Moshe before me. Also, who am I? If now we will ask you, who am I? You will say, this is my teacher teaching me Kabbalah. When I'll get back home and I'll ask my son, who am I? He'll say, Daddy. And if I go to visit my mother tomorrow, she'll say, you're my son. And if I will go to work with some other actor on a movie, he'll say, you are the director. So who am I? And according to what do I define myself? Each time, according to the acquaintance of my actions, as he says here, the way that I am seen by the environment or I interact with the environment. And as for my own essence, I don't really know who I am. I live in some fantasy that there is Amit, me, who changes each time according to the responses of the environment, according to time also. And this is the reality of my life. A little bit scary. No, we want to open up the true reality and actually discover the question that bothers people in the deepest way and the most essential manner from the beginning of history, the question for which they were born. Who am I and what do I live for? And it's actually not so scary. I would even say that it's even encouraging, because in the present reality, you remember this drawing that I perceive a frame. This frame is predetermined. It comes through the influence of the light. It is something that I simply see. And my desire is impressed by the light in such a way there is no I there. Also my actions, if we're talking about that I now do this with my hands and I speak and I feel it and I think that it's me. It's not me. This is how I am being operated by the light, and the I is actually something totally different. But let's not get confused. No. It's important to understand. It's important to really realize that, therefore, what we always have to do is to always aspire to a higher and higher degree. So I don't want to be, well, again, I don't want to be, but I don't want to be in the present I, the present self, but in the next degree. I want to attain equivalence of form even more with the light, more and more to discover the true I. A little passageway to correct our perception, and let's see how, in truth, we begin to correct our perception. So let's go back, my dear friends, to talk about the mechanism of our perception, and let's watch it in general. Let's look at it in general. So we talked about the fact, that there was a shattering, there was such an action, the desire was broken into a myriad of little pieces. This happens along the way as the soul cascades from the world of Ein Sof, like that. Here, the shattering takes place, and then all the little pieces fall and reach the level of this world. Within this cascading, as we said, alongside this cascading, all the information of what the soul goes through is accumulated in this spiritual gene, which we call reshimo, like a record. All the information of all that we went through, all the processes we're going to study about in the second semester, it's all called reshimo. Reshimo. We talked about the development that we go through over hundreds of years, thousands of years, even more. And all of these reshimot, all of this information of what the soul went through is accumulated into one thing, one spiritual gene in us, which is called, remember, the point in the heart. That initial desire, that yearning to reach something which is beyond, to search, well, there's a lack of meaning, we want more. This is the beginning of the reshimo. This is the first tick of this mechanism that brings me to the upper degree. That's the yearning to go back. Why do we call it the point in the heart? Let's do a little drawing. Because here the entire reshimo is accumulated, and this thing around it is the heart. That's all in all my egoistic desires: food, sex, family, money, honor, knowledge. So something interesting comes out of this. It turns out that our perception of reality is as follows. We have light. The light is constant, it doesn't change, it works with a single purpose, a single goal. Light. The light works on the reshimo, which is inside of my desire. Let's draw a reshimo. The image that is received in the reshimo is the picture of this world. What is this world? It's not our world. This world is what I perceive, a reality that I perceive in a given reshimo, in a given state. I don't know. It could be a spiritual world, the present state, or maybe it's our world, or maybe it's in Atzilut at the end of correction. I don't know. But this is the situation. What does it depend on? What does this whole thing depend on? It depends on a single thing. And we can even resemble it, to a projector. That this light is like a projector, and it goes through the Reshimo and projects a certain image to me. A picture of my life. Here is me, here is Amit. Masha is sitting here. Let's give her the kind of hair. And that's the image. Now, what does it depend on? Whether I will perceive something inside of me or something outside of me? What does this depend on?
In the system of my relationship, of course. To which extent I'm in a certain situation with relation to the absolute, only unified, complete reality which was created. Because we said that Kabbalists who have attained the spiritual system, they tell us that it is whole, and that the Creator is whole, and out of being whole, He only created a complete thing. Meaning from the Creator Himself, the light in and of itself, that energy, field of energy in which we all live, it's all whole. So what is it all about? Why don't we experience that wholeness, that everything is one, that we're all in infinite relationship of love between us, that the light flows between us and we're all corrected? Because this is the state even now. Although there is war and much suffering going through the whole world. So why do we experience a different reality?
So why is there suffering if it's all light? So Kabbalists tell us that everything depends on the intention. So you see here there's this block that is called intention. And we can think of it as some sort of a filter. If I have an intention, then the light projects through it on the Reshimo, and this picture that is perceived, where is this picture perceived? Over my desire, my will to receive. So if I have an intention, I perceive. If I have the right intention, a spiritual intention, I perceive the spiritual world. I don't see people, I don't see anything, I see forces. I truly feel outside of the box. And if I don't have that intention, then I perceive this world. That's all. The light is constant, the desire is constant, the Reshimo is what changes things. And here in the middle, we can find the entire spiritual world, all of our advancement according to the degree of my intention, from 0 to 125 degrees of correction. Everything depends on the extent of my intention. What is intention? What is this thing? It's, like Amit said, it's the degree of connection between us. How much I have equivalence of form, and I yearn to be in that, and accordingly I want to activate my desire according to the degree of my connection with others. In fact, it is possible to say the following, that my entire vessel of perception, all of our sensation, it's not something that I feel inside of me as Moshe, and there's another reality out there. Rather, my sensation is all in all of the possible connections between us and all of the possible integrations that we can have with one another through these connections. That gives me the picture of the world. There's no Moshe by himself. I'm in a web of connections between us. And what I feel there depends on my intention. If my intention is egoistic, in order to receive for myself, then I feel that network of connections that we have as this world, our life here, that we so much want to rise above. If to some extent I manage to change my intention, the reason for why I'm in this reality, why I want to be connected to people, or to use different words, if I manage to be exposed to the influence of the surrounding light, and it changes my intention, then I begin to perceive a totally different spiritual world. I no longer see, I'm no longer in my senses, rather my senses become, instead of just the 5 senses, we call it the 5 sephirot, with which I begin to perceive the spiritual world. You were drawing something here?
Yeah, while you were talking, so I was drawing something. But what is going here, actually? If every one of us is a kind of box with 5 openings, you see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in red, these are the 5 openings that we have, the corporeal ones, through which I wrote we receive. This is how we perceive the world, because our world perception is carried out because we are programmed to observe the reality for our self-benefit. You remember the flute of self-love? And this is how we perceive the world. And therefore, we feel the world in a separated way. Every one of us is separated. So what's going on? If we develop the internal connections between us, you see the green here? Every one of us has. We were privileged with the point in the heart to awaken in us, and we're connected to this one whole system that was created. So what are we supposed to do? We're supposed to perform actions that Kabbalists are guiding us to do. They explain to us and they give us the opportunity to connect to the light so that these actions will really take place in us. The essence of these actions is to rescue this core out of the seed in the points of our hearts from within our ego. And then, through the correct connections between us, we are building that thing which is called a common screen. Intention. Kavanah, intention, private and common intention. And then it will become clear to you how it all connects to the prayer of many. But it all becomes a new reality in which every one of us also observes it through 5 senses, like Moshe mentioned. It's an exact replica of, well, let's say our corporal senses are a replica of our spiritual senses, only the spiritual senses are the 5 Sefirot, Keter, Chochmah, Zer Anpin, Malchut, and Bina.
There are many questions here about this process. John from the UK is asking why actually we have all of these numbers here, 5, 30, 125 degrees. What do these numbers tell us? And there's also a question about the essence. Peter from Germany is asking, Petil is asking, does the intention create the connection between me and the Creator? Is that what creates my grasp on the Creator?
And that exactly brings us, and by the way, John from UK, where were you last lesson? We didn't hear from you, right? We were looking for you.
Certainly, I'm sure he caught up with the materials.
Definitely. So, basically, a special thing is going on here, and if you don't answer the whole of the question, we'll ask it again. The light influences us. We have 2 influences on us from the light. One is in our point in the heart, and the second one is in our egoistic desire. Through our egoistic desire, through the egoistic connections that we create between us, we feel inside that net. What we feel is this world, our life, our world, and this is how the light influences us. But what is the action of the light? Fill up, enjoy yourself. My intention today is to receive. I want to enjoy. So basically, what is going on? The light operates on us. I'm going along with the light. I obey him. And I enjoy. How do I enjoy? With an egoistic intention on the expense of others. Everyone here exploits everyone else.
Willingly, not knowingly.
But if you ask everybody, they will tell you that they're righteous.
Of course.
But what's going on here? In such a case, I don't feel the action of the light on me. I have no connection with it at all. There are many frequencies going through us, but I don't have the vessel to measure them or feel them. How do we feel something anyway in our world?
We need resistance.
When there is a resistance, before you gave an example about sounds, about air that strikes my eardrum, there is resistance, and accordingly I measure something strikes my eyesight, so I feel something. Same thing with the weight and everything else. So it turns out that when we're talking about the screen, let's watch the previous diagram. The screen is my intention, where it doesn't matter what is the action of the light. I don't even know what it is. The action of this essence, I translate it into what? Into a connection of giving and love between me and others. So, what is going on? The light operates in a certain direction, and we, together, we're operating in a different direction, meaning we do not want to obey the light, we do not want to exploit each other, rather we're using the action of that essence in order to rise and to develop our intention to the corrected connection between us. And what's in it for us from such a connection? By this we equalize our form to a higher degree of connection, to more advanced states in which we were prior to the shattering. Kabbalists measured those states according to world's measurement of concealment. In every world we have Partsufim. We will talk about it. A Partsuf is the structure of the connection between us. And in every Partsuf there are also Sfirot. Okay? These are the special qualities of that Partsuf. All in all, it creates 125 degrees of spiritual attainment until the merging of the shattering of our soul into one. I will give you another example. In space, have you ever been to outer space?
Me? Not yet, no.
Not yet? Well, fine.
I didn't get the chance yet, no. You know, I have children and it kind of delays things.
So you're pretty busy. Okay, although that is not an excuse, but in outer space, why do we see it as black? There's sun, it shines, so why don't we see the sunlight? Because there is no resistance. The light is traveling, but there is no resistance. The moment there is a star or asteroids or some particles of dust, then we see it. And here, if we start developing our intention or our common effort, and this is very important, if we develop our common effort to connect, to emphasize for each other that the connection between us, the study of the wisdom of Kabbalah, the influence of the surrounding light, to feel the study, by this we help each other. And why? In order to attain the Creator. This is our goal. We're not a goal for itself. What we want to do is to attain the Creator. If we do all that, then we start creating something solid, a resistance, on top of the influence of the light and on top of every single Reshimo, each and every incident that is revealed between us here and in life in general, we can develop the correct relationship, the correct perception to something which is not inside of me, what's in it for me and on the expense of others, and this is how our life look like. Rather, it is outside of me, meaning it is outside of my ego, outside of my egoistic perception. It's a perception of connection, good relation, and love for others. That is called a masach, a screen. That is called in Kabbalah the eye, where the true I is there, because there is the choice between receiving or giving. There I start building myself in all the spiritual degrees.
So Frank from Argentina is asking, there's a question about concepts here. Is my intention this screen, masach, that covers my ego and allows me to connect with others, to create a connection with them?
Very well, correct.
And there's another question here. Actually, is it correct to understand, Rose from the UK is asking, is the action of the light always the same? It's always constant?
Yeah.
And it's only man's perception that changes, right?
The intention, man's intention changes, and due to that, his perception.
What is it? How is intention related to it? In another word, the Kabbalistic term for intention is a masach, screen. But let's look for another word that might sound more tangible, more familiar.
Perhaps resistance?
Resistance to what? Resistance takes me to a place where now I have to resist to all kinds of things, to object to things that are happening to me. Does reality change? No. We talked about that. It's constant. The light is constant. On the other hand, reality constantly changes. Why does it change? Because the Reshimot in me change. When the Reshimot in me exchange, if I want that through each and every state, whenever they change, and they'll keep changing permanently until the end of correction. That's necessary. What should I do so that as of now, until the end of correction, all the Reshimot that will emerge in me, doesn't matter if they are tragical or comical, on top of each and every Reshimot, clack, I will see the Creator operating me and the entire system through the Reshimot. I simply need an attitude. I simply need a very big importance in order to see in each and every incident the hand of the Creator, the voice of the Creator, movement of the Creator. We'll explain in a minute how we do it in practice, but we just have to realize that actually the change is as if a psychological change. It's change in my perception. This is why this lesson is called the perception of reality, because there is no reality. There is only the way in which we perceive it. And we have to start working on the fact that instead of perceiving reality as details, as individuals, that there is me and some environment, some surrounding which is outside of me, then together, using the means of the Kabbalists, we build ourselves, we really build a new life for ourselves, a new environment that supports the reformatting. We're reformatting our perception, our paradigm, our awareness in a new way. In what direction? In a direction where there is no me. I want to feel myself instead of the we, instead of the togetherness. Why? Because in that new me of together, by having an attitude which is in the direction of love for others, supporting others, caring for others, searching for how I can fill them up. Why? Because by that I fill myself up 1,000 times more. It's just this kind of a switch of an inversion. So each one starts working this way. Instead of receiving to himself, for himself, wanting to fill up the others, that these connections between us, between me and the others, that exist already, however they're broken, suddenly we start seeing that they exist. And what's happening? They open up, they fill up with light. It starts flowing between us. And then, inside of that shared awareness, consciousness that we have started living in, we discover that everything is one.
But the tree remains the same thing, right?
Well, we're going to talk about it. Does the tree remain the same tree? Because when I rise to a perception of the masach, the screen, the corrected connection between us, we said that the senses and what I feel are no longer in the world of phenomena. I rise to the level of the roots, and I start feeling not what is operating inside of me right now, this mechanism, this coil. I start feeling the connection with the forces that are operating in me. Why do I feel them? It's just like with a radio tuner. I start being an equivalence of form with these forces, so I start feeling them, what I wasn't sensitive to before. So let's have a short summary.
Hold on a minute. What do you mean a radio receiver? It's a good example. Rav is using it a lot, and you just went through it.
Well, we gave it already once or twice, but what perception of reality you have. But let's move on. In a radio tuner, we have frequencies on the outside. Right now, I don't perceive them. You have a radio tuner, and it tunes itself, calibrates to the right frequency, right? And then, how does it do it? It sends out frequencies.
Transistor.
Yeah, like a radio transistor. It tunes to the right frequency that comes from the outside. There's an equivalence of form, and then we hear, we call it the carrier wave. So we hear the sound wave that's riding the carrier wave. It's the same thing here. To the same extent that we tune ourselves to the more advanced states of ours, we start feeling the connection with the actions of the Creator. What am I trying to show here? In summary, let's see this diagram. This is our desire, the will to receive. We call it a kli, a desire. Inside of it, we have the Reshimo, which is all the incidents of our lives, each and every moment until the end of correction. This is the Reshimo. And we have the light that works on me. The light that works on me operates the Reshimo. And then I feel all of the different incidents according to this mechanism that we talked about, that coil, whether it's good for me or bad for me. If I, along with our precious students, with John and Frank and Rosie and Cassia and many others that I no longer remember their names, and Liviu from Romania and many others, if along with them And here we see that I create, and we see it's above the desire. Why is it above? It's above in importance. If we create connections between us that are aimed at what? All in all, to unite. Unite in what? What is the only thing, the best thing that I can give people in this life? And we asked about it once. Another luxury big car, 20 women instead of one woman. Do you want to have 20 wives?
No.
No, huh? Okay. So what's the most sublime, what's the most wonderful thing I can give people? The attainment of the Creator. And, it's not the attainment of the Creator where I give you a box, here, take it. No, in order to attain the Creator, which is the simple light that fills up the whole of reality, you just need a desire for it, importance. So I'll do everything possible in Facebook's website, so that for Amit, no matter what happens to him in the Reshimo, if it's good or bad, if he won the lottery or, God forbid, lost something, I don't know, I want Amit to only be in the sensation of the connections between us, the good connections between us. And then what happens? The light hits that, but Amit is not impressed from it inside of his will to receive only, but also along with that impression, he and the friends build something else, a different attitude to reality. They already look at it through that network of connections between them, which is the entire reason for the way that we perceive reality. And then what comes out of this is something that is called Or Choser, returning light. And this is our common perception, the Masach, and this is the reflected light, returning light. We'll talk about that. And according to this degree by which we actually return the light, reflected back to the Creator, the pleasure, to that extent we equalize form with Him. We'll talk about that in the second semester. You'll see many such sketches by Rav Leitman and realize that this entire mechanics that we talk about in the study of the Ten Sefirot and the Zohar speaks about our network of connections, which is the source for our life, the source of our perception. One more small thing. Now we can also realize, he talked in the beginning about quantum mechanics. So they reached a certain state, that's it, and they hit a stumbling block. You can't advance beyond that. Why? Because if everything depends on my perception, if I'm the one who is influencing through my perception, and they are actually discovering this already, I'm influencing reality. What reality? Inside of me. I understand that my egoistic attitude, my will to receive, in order to receive, is what is deviating the upper fixed reality into something, into that one single option. In comparison, when I change, or if the scientists, if they realize that I have to change my qualities, I have to equalize my form with something which is on the outside, then from this thing, you will start getting the upper science. I'll start feeling the light, the way it works on me, the way it's changing the Reshimot in me, the connections between us. Then we will have a different science. Then I'll start making records like words, parzufim, degrees. This science is called the wisdom of Kabbalah.
And that also answers the question John asked about all the numbers, right?
Yeah.
This is exactly it. Why? Because the wisdom of Kabbalah, we don't just say it's a science, it's a spiritual science. And unlike scientists of our world, including quantum scientists, they still research inside the matter of the will to receive, meaning they research something which is outside of them.
And there was also a question here in the beginning of Frank by Argentina. How will we look at scientists then? Because they also perceive through their five senses. And they're actually only exploring illusions. So how can we trust them, believe them?
They study illusions, but scientifically, meaning they study the nature of the will to receive, the degrees of the still, vegetative, and animate. They study from the animate degree, which is more developed than the still, vegetative, and animate, and therefore they can study it. The degrees of the formation of the spiritual reality inside the still, vegetative, and animate. That we can study. We have geology, botanics, zoology, and all the science of life, and those sciences and physics, of course, which study the inanimate. These are accurate scientists, more or less. what we measure is empirics. We can perform experiments, repeat them, and to develop a method and say, okay, this is how this species develops. That phenomena that happens in matter happens because of A, B, C, D. And they study correctly. What can they find? They cannot find the root for all of it.
And this is actually the wisdom of Kabbalah that is studying them.
And this is the wisdom of Kabbalah. How can we study it? We can study it only if I rise to the degree of the roots, the degree of Adam. Now, Adam, man himself, when we're here in this world, if we haven't developed yet our point in the heart to this mutual connection between us, and now we are as one united being which has an equivalence of form with the Creator, and from there we study what is happening in those bodies which seem to us as living bodies, like beasts. We identify with them like I have a pet, but it's not me any longer. Rather, me is in a new state, a new dimension of connection. And from there, I can see who activates me, what is happening now, why Obama does what he does, and Putin does his thing, and so on and so forth. Meaning, I see everything that is happening in my reality truly parallel to the fact that I feel it and see it, how it happens. By the way, a tree that it remains the same tree. And by the way, God forbid, if a bomb explodes and all, it happens, it hurts, it is felt. My will to receive, I still can feel it, but the feeling which I truly identify myself with, and this is what allows me to look at my emotion in the will to receive, even it is very hurtful from the side, and not to drown in it, and not to hurt it. The spiritual feeling, this is what I identify with, and that gives me the feeling of a different reality.
You can sum it up by saying that in science, I cannot explore myself, my phenomenon as me. We explore ourselves, we study ourselves at the animate degree, let's say the psychology of the animate. In order to study ourselves, humanity at the level of Adam, we have to rise above this thing. One more thing before we actually go to what to call the practical part is that I have to realize that my entire perception of reality is in my intention. There's no such thing amidst intention. I don't know, he must have an intention, but in order to connect to his intention and Masha's intention and the photographer, the video photographers who are here and all the Kabbalists, I have to change my attitude. I have to glue myself to them. And it's like we always give this example that Rav Lightman gives, the example with this stereogram, these stains. And through them, I discover a picture of the shattering. It's here in the will to receive, you see? I discover this picture of the shattering. So what do? I cross my eyes as if I get into this focus. What is that focus? That on every little bit in this Reshimo, I establish an attitude of connection. We're going to talk about it in the next lesson. But I establish an attitude of connection. Then what happens? What happens is that I cross my sights and I start seeing depth. By that, I actually correct in each step of the way my perception. Why is it important to say that? Because then, in the end, what does everything depend on? What does it all depend on?
Me.
Me. You. Each one should say it about himself. But indeed, the wisdom of Kabbalah teaches us one thing. I don't have anyone to blame. Oh, this guy over there, those guys. The whole broken world in the relationships that I see is only because I have not yet corrected my perception, my attitude. So what should I work on? Like all these world reformers go and correct everyone or put everyone in jail, or I should be correcting myself. If I correct my perception, suddenly I will see a beautiful world.
See how much the wisdom of Kabbalah, which is now revealed, and it is the most supreme wisdom. It is so wonderful, so godly wisdom. It is sublime from our ability to understand now what it is. Because our whole existence, the entire reality, the Creator, what am I trying to say? On the other hand, see how how well it is organized. It is very practical. It is made for us, because what does it do eventually? It takes a person to a state where he has to cope with himself and to start adapting a sense of self-responsibility, personal responsibility for his life. He also observes then, it doesn't matter what quality do you have, which character you have. Okay, I'm responsible for everything. Everything is up to me. I have to change myself, so I'll start working. Out of this point, all of a sudden, we start understanding and feeling and experiencing the lack of forces that we have, and how much we're all interdependent on other people who are by my side and can provide me what I need in order to correct myself.
So I keep coming back to the UK. Today we get the best questions from there. So how will we truly know that we changed the perception of reality? John is asking again. How will we see indications that we started on this path?
John, you exactly, as always, lead us to the next point. Because it's not only how do I know, there is a question even before that, how reality have changed. You're already in 2 + 2 is 4. I don't know what 2 and 4 is. So let us ask it this way. Where this work of changing the perception of reality is done, where is the working field? We spoke of things that our brains exploits right now, but where is it? And here we go back to what we spoke of. We go back to the workshop, to the circle. This is the working place. You remember that? Well, what we said in the last lesson about it, and I want us to read a quote of what Baal HaSulam said. He wrote it about more than 70 years ago. How does he explain the mechanism of perception of the creature? He says, the eye sense, which when we see before us a great world, we do not really see all that. Only in our internality, meaning in our inner mind, there is like a photographic machine which portrays everything that appears to us and nothing outside of us. For that, he has made for us there in our brain a kind of a polished mirror that inverts everything seen there, so we will see it outside our brain in front of our face. Yet, what we see outside us is not a real thing. Nonetheless, see how much Baal HaSulam talks about here, how much we use in the wisdom of Kabbalah, all the inclinations, everything that we're given in order to rise. Although it is all inside of us, opposite, and outside of us there is nothing, we should be so grateful to His providence of the Creator for having created that polished mirror in our brains, enabling us to see and perceive everything outside of us, outside of the relationship that we have of the will to receive. This is because by that He has given us the power to perceive everything with clear knowledge and attainment. We're talking about attaining the upper world, and measure everything from within and from without. The influences of the light, what I feel from within, and similarly what is outside of me. Without it, we would lose most of our perception. If the shattering, where we were all once as one kli, connected, we have the feeling of one, and the upper light was in us, and the connection of the Creator was there. After the shattering, it was shattered to pieces, and we all fear ourselves. What Creator are you talking about? Who are the other people? All I need is to exploit them. So if I need to correct my perception, I need to come out of myself, like Minchausen, to pull myself from the swamp.
We also have a question from Spain. What is it? Is it our free choice, a free will that allows us to look at reality? Marco from Italy is also asking, should I practice, train some altruistic perceptions in order to come out of my ego? How can I do this? Where do I do this work?
Where do you do that, Marco from Italy? And what is the name of the friend from Spain?
Natalia.
Natalia from Spain.
Well, first of all, the good news is that you are already doing this right now. And the less rejoicing news is that we are not yet trained in doing it is powerfully enough, effectively enough, well enough. What am I trying to say? That actually we have all the necessary conditions for doing this work. Certainly, in each and every lesson where we now all meet together in some kind of a space where we're all tuned in our minds and our hearts to attain that spirituality, we're in the same inner motion. Therefore, we already are in some kind of motion towards equivalence of form, right? And we can keep practicing that in the Facebook group. And 100%, if we have the ability to meet physically, and we'll have that later in the Congress, actually, where do we do that? On the network of connections between us, in this circle, or as we talked about it, practically using this vehicle called a workshop, a seminar.
If we were broken, then how do I come out of myself to something outside of me? The only thing I can come out to is you. If that is me, then I come out of myself with my attitude. I come out of myself to the connection with others. The workshop, that circle, you remember before we drew an intention, such a screen. Let's watch it again. We can see it also here, a screen, and also what we drew before. I'm gonna fire that pen. What we drew here, that screen is the intention, is the workshop. It works like a lens that focuses the light to its correct influence. The circle becomes in the correct relationship between us, the good relationship, in the effort that we all do. And as you remember, I hope you watched the workshop, Rav Leitman, he's asking a question, and we're all seemingly discussing that question. But that question, or any other question, represents only a set of lack of connection between us, because in the connection, we will find the solutions for everything. There are no questions. And we, thanks to the connection, thanks to the good relationship and few rules we have mentioned, we want and we long to, not to answer the question and be smart. The question is matter. It's like the desire itself. Above all that, above that desire, above that vessel, you see, we are building our masach, our screen, the good relationship, the warm relationship, in which we want to feel one center between us. A warm center. Like a raspberry sphere, warm sensation of the feeling of one between us. And that feeling, that place, is our mutual place where every one of us throws away his ego from the net of the connections between us. He doesn't bring it with him into the workshop. Amit, perhaps you will help me. It's not for left-handed, this mechanism. He throws away his ego outside. He makes an effort to do so. His friends are helping him. And what do I want to do? I want to help them as much as I can to discover the net of relationship, the warmth and love between us. And this is what Kabbalists did throughout all the generations. Once it used to be between a teacher to his student, and also between two we can discover every possible connections. And today we need at least 10 students, 5, 7 sitting together, and this way they scrutinize all the possible integrations between them in this good relationship.
So it's kind of a laboratory through which we can learn about the degree of Adam, of human. As you said before, that from the animate degree I can explore the vegetative degree, from the degree of Adam, human, I can study the animate degree. So in order to study the degree of Adam, I can only do that from the togetherness out of this group of people. only then I'm above the present degree.
Now I will tell you something. I will surprise you. You're asking me such a question. Let's put it this way. How many years have been we doing, say, a workshop? 3, 4
3 years? Yeah.
You tell me. You participate in all the workshops. You tell me, what do you feel when you walk into a workshop? What is going on there? How do you feel?
I feel very strongly that network of connections between us. I can't say that I can explore who is Adam, who is a human out of this network. Maybe we haven't reached that point yet. But yes, everything that you said is correct. You lose yourself there. You only feel the network. You only feel the connections among everyone. But I don't know to what degree I can actually discover something about myself, or maybe I no longer exist after this point.
Let us remind each other. I come to the workshop. I already want to devour everyone, to be connected with everyone. How do I come to the workshop sometimes? Well, perhaps not so much. People are saying things. All of a sudden, I start feeling during the workshop.
I come out of myself.
But I feel my own self, the resistance, the rejection, all the natural situations of our ego. And everyone feels the same during the workshop. And then what do we do?
So you're actually saying that there's nothing to explore beyond that because I disappear. I'm gone. Nada.
First of all, let's call it the state of exploring, studying. It's more delving in. And what we discover in the workshop is that you really don't research anymore. Only if everyone are in some mutuality between them, and from one round to another, they delve deeper, along with Rav's question, into this circulation, which is more and more internal. Then we can start delving into the depth of the phenomena he was talking about, to create discernments, which are mutual discernments, the words of the friends, your words, everything becomes one mixture, which has a very exciting point which belongs to no one. But there is something in this study which is not the goal in the first stage. The goal in the first stage is to feel the warm center of all of us together. That is enough for us. Also, in the intention with the study, and later on we'll start having workshops, to try during the lesson and during the workshops, much more during the lessons than in a frontal lesson, where everyone are talking together in a well-organized manner according to certain rules. Then we can exercise my desire and to see how much it wants to or doesn't want to exercise my desire in delving deeper into this common thing which is one, but it doesn't belong to me. But there I will find my future self. And on the other hand, to make an effort and to leave this imaginary me behind with all my opinions, intellect, with all my emotions and the cargo that I brings from home, my mentality, my culture, and so many things. Everything is good, nice, I use everything, but I really want to, and that is the intention of the workshop, I really want to focus on my point in the heart and the point of the hearts of my friends, to see only them, to live only there, in the connection between the points.
Then it turns out that I shift from a perception where there is only me to a perception, from the perception of only me to a perception of we. And when we create that common center according to the right rules, we reach the perception of one, where there is no difference. And we start feeling, and actually here are our new senses, it becomes like some sort of a sensor, a radar of the network of connections between us. We start as if to go out of ourselves and to feel phenomena that are happening between us, which are not inside of my ego. This means that, well, it turns out that the light, let me try to do the following sketch. The light operates my ego. It gives me commands. Enjoy them, exploit them, be more than they are, be more than they are, etc. I say, okay, I receive this directive, but my yearning is to be in that network of connections with you. It doesn't matter what kind of command I get over here. And then I start living with you in this mutual sensation. What is in this mutual sensation? In that shared sensation, we begin to feel the common source of ours. We start feeling emotions that are opposite what we feel in this life, of rejection, or if there is love, it's only love for the sake of myself, for my own benefit. We start discovering that this whole reality, which is as if parts that are outside of me, in the workshop, through my attitude, because there's nothing that is physical, it all has to do with my perception of reality. So through my attitude, I start bringing them back to me. What does it mean to bring them back to me? To feel that we are all one. Like a mother who feels her child not as something separate from her, but as a part of her through love. And therefore, this is why Kabbalists said, and see how much everything is here in the workshop or in the group, this attitude between us is called a group. Why did Kabbalists say, love thy friend as thyself? Has any of you heard about this rule? Why? Because this is the correction of creation. By that, we later come to equivalence of form with the Creator. This is why they say, Baal HaSulam says, from love of people to the love of the Creator. Through the fact that we here attain that corrected connection of ours, here, through equivalence of form, we start discovering a connection with the Creator, with the force that is operating reality, the force that is managing reality. And later on the game becomes different, because then we all become as a single created being, and we start having a dealing with the force that is operating us. And there begins a whole world of intentions. What intention do we have with respect to Him? And that's already...
Rosie exactly is asking whether in this process of the building of the Masach, it's over sometimes, right?
Yes, there are 125 degrees. Well, she can ask John at the end of correction. The end of correction, that's our correction.
And we build a much stronger, much more powerful screen, harder screen.
What does that mean that it's hard? That it can resist any influence? And also, what is the Masach?
And also, what's a screen anyway?
It sounds to me like some sort of eternal,
Okay, let's explain it in our degree. I don't know workshop or no, I haven't done one yet. I have a learning center once a week. I have my life, which is the desire. I have the Kabbalah studying that I'm taking, the environment, Facebook, the lessons, reading some scripts and recommendations of the two teachers here and Masha. They tell me different things. And then I have the light that operates through me and tells me, enjoy it for yourself, doesn't matter what from, or it's not it, go again, turn against it, or be despair of it. It doesn't matter. I assume you're all smiling back home because you understand what I'm talking about. This is the operation of the light in us. It activates our ego against that state of connection. And if we choose an environment, now see how everything fits together. If we choose an environment, the correct environment, and we increase the importance of the connection, the importance of those means, then we operate on ourselves an influence which is called surrounding light, and that increases our yearning, our point in the heart, or in other words, it starts building between us, even in our level, something of that screen, a common longing. And that gives me the strength to go to the second semester, make it to the convention, and the third semester, and 10 years like Masha, until the end of correction.
And as we say, this later becomes the screen. That is, there is a very special process, and we're going to talk about it broadly in the second semester, which is called from Lo Lishma to Lishna, not for the sake of the Creator to for the sake of the Creator. This is the entire process of preparation that a person goes through from the time that the point in the heart awakens in him. We live from many periods. We live constantly in the will to receive. We want to receive and receive and receive. Suddenly there is a special incarnation, a certain period of life where suddenly a Reshimoy awakens in us called the point in the heart. Pop, suddenly I have a desire for spirituality, a true one. What does that mean, a true one? One that in the end will bring me to the wisdom of truth. This is why it's called a true one. Maybe I searched before, but I didn't reach Kabbalah before. Kabbalah is the wisdom of truth. It's a method that allows this point in the heart to develop, because there is a connection with the light. So now I start going through a process where the point in the heart starts coming out through this importance, and ultimately through the light it starts emerging or growing or inflating, or in other words, I start identifying with it more and more on top of my ego, whomever I am and whatever I have in my life, etc. I don't cancel anything in my life, but internally I identify more and more with the purpose of my life and with my way towards attaining it. This process is called the process of preparation. It is called not from the sake of the Creator to for the sake of the Creator. In the end of this preparation process, the point in the heart opens up, it joins with all the other points in the heart, and we end up creating this common kli to which I was aspiring. This is what I was building, this is what I was looking for in that process that I went through. Maybe in a few weeks of doing the learning center, or a little bit more, each one according to how long it takes him.
The people here are shocked that we're talking about 10 years. There's Emilio Veronica from Spain asking, how do we receive the corrected perception of reality as soon as possible?
As we say in Spanish, podemos, everything is fine, we'll be able to do it. In fact, we are talking about a period of time that is between 3 and 5 years, that the period for getting to attainment. Baal HaSulam attained, he writes, after 30 years that he started attaining the wisdom of Kabbalah. But we have to realize there's a difference between attaining the full network of connections, Atzilut of the entire wisdom of Kabbalah, let's say the highest most degree about which the wisdom of Kabbalah talks about. And we'll see that the wisdom of Kabbalah is not what I read here in the book. Actually, let's go back to the diagram that I created. I read a certain book, and if I don't have the screen, the masach, I don't have the perception, the correct perception of reality. I look at the book and it says a cow, a donkey, I don't know, Moses, I don't know what else is mentioned there. If we start connecting between us, we start receiving from the book the influence of the surrounding light. If we build, and this surrounding light strengthens our masach, the connections between us, the yearnings of each one of us, up to a certain degree, which is called se'ah, a full cup or a full measure, and then all of us together go through this thing or cross this thing which is called mahsom, a barrier. Well, we didn't talk about that yet. And we transcend in our awareness, our consciousness, our sensation from this world to a sensation of the spiritual world. And then from here, when we read this book, we will start feeling the influence of the forces, specifically where what the Kabbalists are talking about, which is what? The 125 degrees. Now, there is a particular degree where, I don't know how long it's going to take, but to reach this thing, to reach the beginning of the spiritual attainment, if we make even the smallest effort between us, that can take a second. What is the saying? The entire Torah and the entire correction is something easy. That's what they say.
So there's Delchi from Switzerland who's asking, what about those who cannot go to workshop? Will they not advance, or cannot they connect? Those who don't have a physical opportunity to be in a workshop?
No, that's a good question. Look, we are beginning to enter practical questions, really advanced questions about students that are as if concerned about their ability to advance, and they realize already that it depends on their environment, etc., their surrounding. So this question was asked many times, and Rav Lightman answered it more than once, and we'll give the answer that we know also from our experience, from plenty of experience, that it's the right one. Why? Because actually, for the first time, and let's give a little bit of background first, once our ability to attain spirituality was truly very limited. It was organized in a particular way, and if you wouldn't study or more correctly, if you weren't a man studying in a group of Kabbalists following very strict and rigid laws with many limitations and many exercises, there would be no chance to attain spirituality. But this thing has been inverted, it opened up, it changed totally during our time. It is still built on the same laws, but it opened up. Why did it open up? Because we have entered the period of the general correction, which is very exciting. This means that on the one hand, now it's much easier, because great masses of people are inside of this process altogether, not a group of 5 Kabbalists sitting and studying in some small dark room without anybody else knowing about it. Rather, masses, many people from all kinds of different cultures and nations all over the world are involved in the same action. So it's much easier. There's much greater desire, much greater emotion, a lot more thought, a lot more mutual support, a lot more of the whole realization of the spiritual means, on the one hand. On the other hand, the condition is also to unite, just like it was in that myth that we are used to reading about in the Torah when they came out of Egypt, that there was a single nation as one man in one heart. This joining together of everyone will truly start raising humanity as a mass. First us, those who have the points in the heart, and along with us it will pull to the spiritual world everyone. And therefore the only issue that we have to pay attention to is, what did the Creator give me right now when He awakened that point in the heart in me? Where did He place me? What is my reality? If He put me here, apparently that's the best possible thing. I don't know yet how and why. It's worthwhile for me not to try and do all kinds of extreme things. I'll start studying, whether I'm a man or a woman, doesn't matter what. I'll start entering the study, and according to how I will start feeling my yearning, my inclination, my desire towards spirituality, then I will know naturally whether I should make certain changes in my life, maybe yes, maybe no, search for something physical, deepen the virtual connection, etc., etc. But we highly recommend to be meticulous, make it an iron rule, to have always a balance with our corporeal life, and realize that whatever the Creator gave us in this particular moment is 100% and always the most correct thing for our advancement.
And from the other side of balance, to try everything you can in everything that we're given now. What did the Creator give us now? The force of the connection between us. He gave us the Facebook group. Let us create there the good relationship between us. We have the scripts, we have the lessons. This is one thing. Another thing, there's also something which many of the students who study with us in the Common CLI, the World CLI, they're having a virtual workshops. There are many programs, Team Talk, Skype, Hangouts, Google Hangouts. And also in the next semester we will use such software, and we will be able to be in many groups. We will be able to see each other, and everything's going to be fine. I just wanted to add a small thing, which is related to whether the tree will disappear. People have been asking that from the beginning of the lesson, if the tree will disappear. Not only will it disappear, rather when we come to the end of correction, what happens?
What are you putting them in pressure, Moshe? What for?
Okay, so what is going on there? And everybody have already corrected themselves. This whole world disappears, fades away. Everyone puts himself and is identified with the net of relationship in the central point of relationship with the Creator. And there is no life, no death, because there is no corporal body anymore. I don't identify with my flesh we don't have this image anymore. We have another reality. And there, only there, the correction starts. The correction ends and the work starts. As Rav Lightman says, you have corrected your car in the garage. Now you start driving it.
Yeah.
But Kabbalists didn't write about it. This is what we have to start feeling by ourselves, because there are no words, no letters, no attainment in that.
Now we have many surprises waiting for us along the way. In short, well, any dessert, Masha?
There is so much.
Questions
So many
or-
questions. It's a good thing to stay with some questions. There's a question which I really much connect to. I have to ask it. I don't know if we have much time left.
Half a minute.
But what to do with my close environment who doesn't know anything that is going on with me? Anna from France is asking me, and was very hostile to Kabbalah. And this is actually my environment. What to do about it? Can I give an answer for that? Show good relationship to that environment, to show them that Kabbalah makes you feel good, that it makes you connect to people, makes you search for love, give love, and then you will see how everything changes. Believe me, I've been through it myself.
Kabbalah is a science, and if you're talking to people who are interested in this kind of attitude, you can tell them it's a science, I studied this thing, but because it's a very deep question, I think we'll answer it also in future weeks. But I want to finish with something. I have a dessert.
What a quote? What quote?
Regarding everything that we said, Bala Sulam writes in the introduction in the preface to the book of Zohar, and he says, and I know that this is completely unaccepted in the eyes of some philosophers. They cannot agree that man, which they think of as low and worthless, is the center of the magnificent creation.
But they are like a worm that is born inside a radish. It lives there and thinks that the whole world of the Creator is as bitter, as dark, and small as the radish it was born in.
But as soon as it breaks the shell of the radish and peeps out, it claims in bewilderment, I thought the whole world was the size of the radish I was born in, and now I see a grand, beautiful, and wondrous world before me. This is what is awaiting us, and we're going to see you next week. And until then, please enter the Facebook page, send us questions. We promise to create some clips during this week and work hard as much as we can. And we're going to see you next week. Thanks, Masha. Thanks, Amit. Thank you.
It was fascinating. Thank you so much.